right. Yes, no?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we are ready to
Madam,
begin.
Madam Interim Clerk,
Yes, ma'am.
correct? All right.
Madam Mayor, we are ready to begin and calling to order the Reno City Council for January 24th, 2024.
All right, good morning. Thank you so much. We're going to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance and the flag. I would love for Ilya Bateman to lead us in the flag. No? Why not? You don't do the flag? Okay. All right. Terry? The flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I'm going to send it back to you for roll call.
All right, Madam Clerk. A2 is roll call for the Reno City Council. Ruckus.
I'm here.
Dewar.
Here.
Martinez.
Here.
Ebert. Taylor.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Sheevy.
Here.
For the record, Ebert is absent at this time.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor, with that, we have a quorum for the Reno City Council.
Okay, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to go into item A3, public comment.
All right, Madam Mayor, our first comment today is public comment. Members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering through the following link, which could be found on reno.gov/meetings. The link reads as follows: https://reno.gov/459C8YK. It should be noted for those in attendance that comments are to be addressed to the mayor and council as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the council's agenda. Council may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name, and you will be afforded 3 minutes. For those participating in chambers, in accordance with Council Rules 6.3.11, while in this room, please be respectful. Disruptive behavior from audience members like clapping, yelling, whistling, etc., which impede the meeting may result in a warning issued by the presiding officer. If the behavior continues, you may be removed from chambers. If you are in attendance in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. At this time, we have none registered. We will begin public comment with Terry Brooks, followed by Luis McGrill, followed by Matthew Wilkie.
Morning, it's me, Terry Brooks again, and I'm determined to have shared my thoughts on discrimination against people who are hearing impaired. When people are hearing impaired, and hearing is something they do without, and they find themselves in a group of hearing people, they sometimes feel a bit left out. People who are deaf have learned how to read lips, but when people are wearing masks, the deaf can't see their lips. The deaf have also learned to read other people's expressions, and then they can repeat to other deaf people using their own expressions. Discriminators refer to deaf people as the deaf and dumb. I've gotten to know a few deaf people, and they are in no way dumb. I once worked for a company that had a very thoughtful boss. She even hired me to work there, and she hired people with hearing loss. I worked with some contact with those who were hearing impaired. I found their actions very interesting, not that anyone else there cared. I watched them signing to and watching each other. I couldn't believe how they do it. But it was obvious that to them there was nothing to it. They were working in a noisy situation where hearing people couldn't hear each other. But by using ASL, American Sign Language, those deaf workers could sign to each other. And because of my contact with them, they taught me to sign the alphabet. They tried to teach me how to sign a lot of words, but I still haven't learned many yet. Even though those people couldn't hear but could read what each other signed, they could translate everyone's expressions. I felt like they could read my mind. I've learned that when a lot of people lose one of their senses, they wind up learning even better how to use the rest of their senses. So when anyone discriminates against someone who doesn't need one of their senses, they need to stop and think about it and maybe come to their senses. I would like to thank you all for listening to me today. And if you can't hear me, that's okay. Oh, this is chapter 23. And just so you know, I've only got 23 more chapters to go.
Okay, great. And I just saw that you are are you teaching poetry at the senior center?
Yeah, that begins next month,
Okay.
February 12th
That's great.
at 1:00 p.m.
Love it.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm surprised that I was encouraged to do that.
You're going to be great.
I'm going to have fun.
You're going to.
I'll learn from everybody.
Next up is Louis McGrill, followed by Matthew Wilkie, followed by Ian Anderson.
Hello and good morning, Council. My name is Louis McGrill for the record, and I am speaking today to ask for a status update and action items regarding the Community Assistance Center, or the CAC. So it's been a few months, just to jog our collective memory here. The CAC was a city-owned shelter that was located at 355 and 315 Record Street, and it was built something like 20 years ago with somewhere between $15 and $20 million in funding from federal grants, local government funds, and charitable contributions. When the CAC was in operation, it had over 150 rooms, a health clinic, a resource center, and more. And when I last spoke before council on this issue at the September 27th meeting, we discussed how the facility developed a number of serious problems over the years as a direct result of years of negligence. So things like mold, missing wiring, and a broken elevator, all of which led to the building being red tagged, represent to me and several other people in the community a serious and ongoing failure to manage that property appropriately. And frankly, we're talking about a city-owned, multi-million-dollar, 50,000 plus square facility that kept thousands of people off the street over the years. I'm not alone in thinking that the city should have responsibility and accountability for that disastrous waste of public resources, and that we should never have allowed things to get so bad in the first place. But now we are here, and as such, I want to call on this council to take some action regarding that facility. I think the need for movement on this is especially critical because we got a promise back in September when the motion to approve the 2022 CAPER report was approved that the CAC would be put on a future agenda sometime fourth quarter 2023. As far as I know, that never happened, and now winter is here and we don't have any progress on the facility's future. So 5 action items the city should do immediately. First and foremost, agendize further discussion as soon as possible on the CAC and get more public input on what should be done with that facility. Second, the council should commit to reopening and repairing the CAC in order to continue providing services for our unsheltered neighbors. I know that the city does not want to do that and that we're wiping our hands of direct service provision. I think that's a huge mistake. 3, if it turns out to be completely infeasible that the city reopens the CAC as such, then we should be putting out a public request for proposals. There might be a nonprofit, a public entity, even a kind-hearted developer out there that could take over, manage the facility better than the city did, and continue to provide some form of transitional or bridge housing services. Action item 4, don't, no matter what, turn the CAC into another set of luxury apartments. That property has a history, it has a legacy, it took money and sweat and blood and effort to make it run. I think it would be the biggest betrayal imaginable if it was turned into inaccessible housing. And 5, be transparent with any and all future actions regarding the CAC, and by that I mean don't engage in backroom deals that fail to benefit the community, don't give preferential treatment to any of the yuppie developers that I'm sure are knocking on your doors, and don't hide the process from the public or surprise us with an already inked contract. Thank you so much for your time.
Next up is Matthew Wilkie, followed by Ian Anderson, followed by Ilya Arberman.
Time addressing this board, so a little nervous, bear with me. My name is Matthew Wilkie, for the record, and while the city is now given houselessness services over to the county, you can't ignore the fact that 135 people died in the streets in 2023. And if they had housing, they would not be houseless, thus ultimately, Their deaths fall on you, the city. One thing I heard multiple times throughout last week's 7-hour meeting was the phrase false equivalency. You are correct that it would be a false equivalency to compare being able to pay for one thing if funds were allocated to another, if that said thing ended up being taken care of. In this case, the CAC is not being paid for or addressed. I urge the City Council to prioritize immediate solutions for the houseless population, such as fixing the CAC or giving that building over to the county for sheltering. It is not enough to reallocate the job of houseless services, and then it's not, it is, pardon me. I'm sorry, I was nervous.
Okay. Take your time. Don't worry about
Action
it.
is needed to be taken to address. I'm also urging the council members that are on the CHAB to ask a meeting from Chair Hill to hold another CHAB meeting, since the county has now updated their website saying that any member of the CHAB can ask for a meeting at any time. So I'm urging those members that sit on the CHAB to do so. Please do not prove that false equivalency and ensure that action is taken to ensure the urgent needs for the houseless population in Reno. Put the CAC on the agenda, at least for discussion. I've seen this body bring items before this council purely for discussion for less, and the community has been asking for it purely to be at least talked about. I know houselessness is not cute nor fun to be talked about, but when members of this body, even last week, talk about that it is more important to prioritize fixing the roof of a bowling stadium opposed to a roof of the CAC because it brings in income, it's not right. So please don't let another year go by where we come back again and discuss even more houseless deaths due to the inability to get things done. One thing, while I do have some time, I do want to bring up is I watch all the meetings at home. It's my first time here in chambers. One thing I want to discuss is the way you guys talk amongst each other and the way it comes across to the community is awful. The way I don't know if you guys know this, but you guys talk to each other and it just comes off very berating to each other regardless of your viewpoints, and it's not okay. So
Yeah.
I urge all of you guys to treat each other nicer, please.
Matthew, great message.
Next up is Ian Anderson, followed by Ilya Arberman.
Madam Mayor and councilors, thank you for your time this morning. My name is Ian Anderson, and I'm a youth athletic coach. I'm on the board of the High Sierra Lacrosse League and the Reno Youth Sports Association, and I'm a recent member of the Reno Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm here with Mac Rossi, who's also on the commission. As you know, this is an exciting time for the City of Reno Parks, the Downtown River Plan, the development of parks at Mill Street and Pembroke are wonderful initiatives that will greatly benefit families in Reno. The increase of recreation infrastructure is a wonderful gift to our growing community. As I mentioned to you in December, the city's Parks and Recreation Department is developing a maintenance plan for improving the quality of the existing inventory of City of Reno grass areas and playing fields. This comprehensive plan will have an immediate positive impact for families, better grass areas at the parks to play in and picnic on, and an increased and safer athletic opportunities for our children. The plan includes a spend on equipment and staff to bring field maintenance and mowing in-house after being outsourced for the last several years. This change will result in increased quality and more frequent mowing and increased fertilizing and aeration, resulting in better and safer fields for our children. Reno Youth Sports Association supports this initiative as it provides for immediate improvements to our current field inventory. In support of this effort, Reno Youth Sports Association has pledged $180,000 to help with the purchase of the mowing and maintenance equipment, $50,000 to help cover the costs of bathroom maintenance at the city parks, and increasing player fees over a 3-year period that will help fund staff and maintenance as we move forward. So as this budget item moves forward to you all, I hope that you'll consider this proposal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Next up is Ilya Arberman.
Hi, Ilya.
Arberman for the record. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm going to echo a lot of what Louis said. In September, the council made a commitment to agendize the CAC for further discussion, and that has not happened yet. I understand that our plan, the Lefty Weirdo Community's plan, is not necessarily everyone's plan, and that's okay. I think we're not necessarily asking for a single vision. Really, we are just asking for public engagement and transparency on the process of what happens, right? I think that that is the key here. We understand that there's going to be a lot of different thoughts, but like Lewis said, and I'm not going to repeat it, the CAC is not just an alley abandonment. It's not just an empty lot, right? This is a huge building with a lot of potential, a lot of years and years of effort went into building it and operating it, and it would really be a shame if it just kind of quietly disappeared or something, you know, turned into a parking lot or something along those lines. I'd like to, after the CAPER report, we did reach out to HUD with some of our concerns, and I'd just like to read part of an email back from Jadzia Hardiman, Reno's CPD rep and direct HUD contact, where she says, "The city establishes its priorities through its elected leaders in consultation with the public and local stakeholders. HUD encourages the public to continue to work with their leaders to decide what projects it should fund consistent with its priorities," right? So that's what we're doing here, right? We are just asking for a discussion around the CAC. We learned last week that staff had actually already been working with a private developer with discussion of a potential sale of the CAC, and that definitely raised some alarm bells. We're really not sure why there's any movement on the CAC prior to public discussion. And we would hate there to be an agendized item in the future that presents this to the public as kind of a done deal. I think there have actually been a lot of recent examples of public engagement that have gone well, from like micromobility to the ward redistricting, which I think, you know, people might have some issues with it, but overall, I think the city did a pretty good job kind of engaging people around it, right? And those were, you know, the ward redistricting was a heavy lift. The CAC, in some ways, it might be more complex, but putting a discussion on the agenda is not. So we are asking that that happens ASAP so we can talk about it. And we are categorically, and I think I don't speak for myself, I think I can speak for the community at large, right? That if staff are talking to people, that means those people are getting some kind of preferential treatment because there's no RFP put out, there's no awareness that there's any movement with the CAC. And if some people are being made aware that they have an opportunity to invest, for example, and others aren't, right? That's exactly the issue we're raising here, right? We need transparency in the process, and RFP seems perfectly appropriate, and at the very least, a discussion. So I look forward to seeing that on the agenda very soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Thanks very much.
Hey, thanks so much. Ilya, you're still on the NAB, right?
Ward 3 now, yes.
How's that going?
It's going great.
It's going good?
Yeah, and another example of public engagement. So we're obviously committed to that, right? We're not just here talking smack. We're trying to do the right thing.
Thank you. Thanks, Ilya.
That concludes our in-person public comment. For the record, we did receive 12 comments of concern, which were general in nature or not directly associated with an agenda item prior to 4 p.m. on January 23rd, 2024. These comments were voicemail and/or written correspondence received via our reno.gov online public comment forum or by email to our office. Copies of these comments have been distributed to the Reno City Council and are available to the public on the reno.gov meeting portal. With that, Madam Mayor, we have no more further comments.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to send it to our city manager for any updates or clarifications on the agenda.
None today, Madam Mayor. We're ready to rock and roll.
Okay, thank you so much. At this time, item A4, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Second. I have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving right along. Item B, consent agenda. At this time, Madam Clerk, do you have any public comment on this item?
At this time, we do have a public speaker. Sarah Hines, you are up.
All right, Sarah, come on up. And then, Sarah, let us know which item you are speaking on.
Yes, I'm speaking on item B6.
Okay,
And
great.
for the record, my name is Sarah Hines. I'm the Executive Director of Good Luck Macbeth Theater, and I just wanted to thank the council for its continued support of our Elevate campaign and all the arts in Reno. The arts community here is very vibrant and it's growing every day, and the city's support in that is a huge impact in making those arts available to everyone and accessible and affordable for all of Reno. So thank you very much.
That's fantastic. And I see this is from Councilwoman Breckus. That's very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all so
Thanks, Councilwoman
much.
Breckus. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask council members, I'll start to my left with Megan Ebert, Councilwoman Ebert. Let me know if there's anything you want to pull off the agenda.
No, not this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Councilman Reese, go ahead.
Nothing, Madam Mayor.
All right. Councilwoman Taylor? Councilwoman Martinez?
No, thanks.
Councilwoman Breckus? None. Okay. With that being said, may I get a motion?
So moved.
To approve all items? I have a motion from Councilman Reese, a second from Councilwoman Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Madam Clerk, back to you.
With that, Madam Mayor, we are on item C1. For the record, proper notice was given at this time. We will begin with public comment.
Okay.
There are currently no speakers. However, for the record, we did receive one comment in support, which was given in general nature or not directly associated with an agenda item prior to 4 p.m. on January 23rd, 2024. These comments were voicemail and/or written correspondence received via our Reno.gov online public comment form or by email to our office. Copies of these comments have been distributed to the Reno City Council and are available to the public on Reno.gov meeting portal. With that, Madam Mayor, we have no further comments.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, I'm going to send it over to, hold on 1 second.
Oh, I do apologize, Madam Mayor. I did forget to open and say that we are open now for the public hearing for items.
All right. Hold on, I just want to, I think my agenda is moving all over here, right here, hold on a second. Okay, so just for the record, let the record reflect that the city council is opening the public hearing at this time. Was proper notice given? Any correspondence received, Madam Clerk?
Yes, proper notice was given, and no, we do not have any public comment in person, but we did receive one written comment in support, which was general in nature or not directly associated with the agenda item prior to 4 p.m. on January 23rd, 2024. These comments were voicemail and/or written correspondence received via Reno.gov online public comment form or by email to our office. Copies of these comments have been distributed to the Reno City Council and are available to the public on the Reno.gov meeting portal. With that, Madam Mayor, we are now have no further comments.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to send it over to Ward 3. Or any presentation. Would you like a presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Leah. Coming up.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the council. For the record, Leah Picotti, Associate Planner with the City of Reno Development Services. And today I'm going to present an application for an abandonment for Line Drive, I think. There we go. Alrighty. So here you can see the subject site. It's located between East 4th Street and Interstate 580, exit 15 off-ramp. The total requested abandonment area is 18,746 square feet. Here you can see a closer close-up of the area to be abandoned. Just to give you a little bit of background, Line Drive currently dead ends and bisects the Nevada CARES campus. The CARES campus was approved through an entitlement for a conceptual phasing plan back in 2022. Basically, the abandonment of Line Drive will tie the two CARES campus parcels together to support the expansion of the Nevada CARES campus. Here you can see the area to be abandoned. Currently, the only property served by Line Drive is the CARES campus. However, you can see on the left-hand side there, the Slider Family Trust property. Currently, that property is accessed from the properties to the south, but should that property ever be sold off or separated from those, that abandonment area right there would be used to access that parcel. So basically what you see on the left-hand side of the screen is going to be abandoned to the Slider Family Trust, and what you see on the right hand will be abandoned to the CARES campus. Here you can see the southern point of the abandonment area. You can see the fence right there. That's basically where that's going to be. And currently it is fenced and has been fenced for some time because, again, it's only served by the CARES campus. CARES campus is on the right-hand side of this photo. The Slider Family Trust property is on the left-hand side, and that's Line Drive right down the middle. As you move up Line Drive, you can see, this is kind of an old photo, but you can see the pods off to the left-hand side. I believe now those pods have been moved down, and that is being developed as support housing for the CARES campus. And again, the other side of CARES campus is on the right-hand side there. The recommended abandonment finding is that the public will not be materially injured by the proposed abandonment. Staff has reviewed this and does recommend approval. Staff found that the abandonment will allow the campus to grow and continue to provide vital services to the unhoused communities of Reno and Washoe County. The recommended motion is on the board, and I am available for questions, and the applicant is here and available for questions too. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great job, Leah. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. Okay, I'm going to start with Councilman Breckus.
I don't have any questions, Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
Councilman Martinez.
I don't have any questions. I'd just like to thank staff and the CARES Campus for working on this project and with the neighboring parcels as well, and making sure that they still had access and weren't landlocked on that parcel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Taylor, anything? Curious, maybe you can go through the, like, what exactly is the vision? I mean, I get why we're doing this, but maybe some people don't understand why they are asking for this. And also, I'm a little curious, just, and it's not a big deal, but I know that that was an access point line, right? And so is the plan to keep that open for access, or what does that look like? I know everything's being completely, sort of, with all the growth in there, is being sort of redesigned. So but I'd
Exactly.
like to just kind of know, what's the broad vision?
I think I'm going to turn it over to the applicant so they can talk a little bit about the CARES campus itself and what that
Thank you.
vision is.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Good morning. For the record, Brett Steinhardt, Washoe County Capital Projects.
Good morning, Brett.
Good morning. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, go ahead.
The entrance of Line Drive will be part of it maintained. We have access to the new resource center directly off of Line Drive. A little bit further, not a whole lot. It'll be another entrance into what's called as the accessible space development, where they'll be building permanent supportive housing there. So be two entrances off of that, and then we'll be providing access to the Slitter Trust property.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Councilman Reese, go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the county for bringing forward the application for the abandonment. For my part, I want to just share with my colleagues, I was there at the campus last week for an afternoon, and my goodness, it's incredible to see the work that's going on, especially the work that you're undertaking to transform that campus. It had been probably 6 or 9 months since I had been on the campus. It was good weather when I was there last. And even from then to today, it's incredible to see the transformation. And as I toured some of the resource center buildings, the warming center, some of the resource offerings, and even looked to the main part of the campus where there's some tremendous work being done to provide for a kitchen, for example, and all the ways that we need to be able to care for our community that are there, it really is tremendous. And I go back in time to thinking about, 4 or 5 years ago when we first started to build the original CARES campus structure, and where it is from then to where it is today and where I believe it's going is incredible transformation. And I think for generations it will be a safe and happy home for many people. The next step, of course, with the supportive housing is perhaps the most exciting, because it really is that transition from street to shelter to supportive permanent housing to other housing options. And so the continuum is really important as we address everyone's needs, which are all very unique. Every person that we encounter that has reason to spend time at the CARES campus has a different story, and their needs are different. And so really I tip my hat to you for the work that you're doing with your team. It's really mind-blowing. I remember when Councilmember Jardin and I toured the Haven for Hope project in San Antonio and thought maybe someday we'll be something that other people will be looking to for what they have done and done well here. And we're already starting to see that. Having spoken to them, you've got folks coming in and out all the time talking about how the Safe Camp interacts with the main CARES campus, which interacts with a number of different projects even across the street as Highway 40 comes online. So there is just a truly transformational effort going on there, and really we owe a lot of thanks to the county for their leadership.
Thank you. We do appreciate the city's support as well.
1 second, I gotta get used to this. Councilwoman Ebert, anything? No. I also would like to remind you, and I believe Ms. Scarlett, that Councilwoman Dewar is on the phone too, as well. Councilwoman Dewar?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to weigh in at all? Any questions, comments?
No, I understood the presentation and appreciate where we're doing. There is just one thing. Last time, there was a request to change the street name right next to the CARES campus, Throck Hill. And I did not pull it off the agenda, but it's just right next to where this is. And as we move forward, we just need to be cognizant of the historical impact of any streets that we're abandoning. And I'll just leave it right there for now.
Councilmember Dewar, thank you so much. I'll come back to the body. Any other comments by council? Mr. Martinez, I'll look for a motion.
Thank you. Just to clarify, do I have to specify that we make a determination in the motion? Okay.
Yes, if you would, please.
Of course. So I move to approve staff recommendation and make a determination that the public will not be materially injured by the proposed vacation and approve the abandonment subject to the conditions in the staff report.
And to be clear, you have made the public determination that there is no material injury.
Correct.
Okay, I have a motion and a second by Ms. Taylor. Any additional questions in the body? I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk.
With that, we are on our next item, D1, for the budget augmentation. At this time, we do not have any public speakers, and for the record, we received 0 comments associated with the agenda item prior to 4 p.m. on January 23rd, 2024. With that, we have no further comments.
I'll welcome our staff to the podium for a presentation. Thank you and good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, council members. Lindsay Hatfield, Senior Management Analyst with Finance. My item is bringing forward the second quarter augmentation. This augmentation covers the revisions and augmentations through December 31st of 2023. That's our second quarter. On the second quarter augmentation, annually we bring forward mostly fund balance true-ups. This is following the audit and acceptance of the ACFR by council. That gives us a firm number as far as where our expenses ended in the prior year, and so we're able to true that up with what our original projections were for that ending fund balance, and to bring that true up forward. We do bring augmentations forward on a quarterly basis. These allow us to be more nimble to the needs of our community. They allow us to address those changing needs as we go through the year. We're also today recognizing grants and reimbursements, some revenues that are coming in higher than anticipated. We're also bringing forward the ARPA revenue replacement that council approved on March 8th of last year and proposing the addition of 14 new FTEs. The additions to the general fund that are proposed are cost neutral to that fund. For the general fund, we're proposing appropriations of $12.4 million. Of that, $4.2 million is the fund balance true-up. That is excess fund balance that we have from the prior year. We're bringing that forward and recognizing. $5.2 million in ARPA revenue replacement that, again, council approved in March of last year. These one-time revenues are being proposed for one-time expenses to finish out the Public Safety Center, Moana Pool, and cover some public safety severance and payouts that we're seeing in those departments. We also have $2.5 million in grants and reimbursements that departments have received, as well as $476,000 in revenues coming in higher than anticipated. There are 8 positions being proposed. Again, these are cost neutral to the general fund. 6 of these positions are proposed for the fire department. These are paramedic positions or advanced emergency medical technicians. These are fully funded via GEMT reimbursement, and they are revenue-generating positions. So adding these positions allow us to continue doing those transport services and receiving that reimbursement from the federal government. There is no impact to the general fund for that. They are covered by that reimbursement 100%. We're also proposing the addition of a fire inspector. This is funded via the building fund. BFAC did recommend this to come forward to council at their meeting in May. This position does construction inspections and plan reviews. We also have proposed a systems analyst for our information technology department. This position will focus on the ServiceNow software platform and will be funded via enterprise fund reimbursements. So none of these 8 positions are proposed against general fund, our main revenue sources to the general fund. These do have other sources of funding. For the street fund, we're proposing the addition of 4 new maintenance workers for our maintenance and operations division. These positions will focus on right-of-way maintenance for parkways and medians. We are seeing that fuel tax come in above budget, so we do believe that based on our long-term projections, that this fund is healthy enough to absorb these additional 4 positions. These would be dedicated the funding for this would be dedicated fuel tax revenues, and that is allowable per NRS, and I have a little more detail on that in the staff report. For the sewer fund, we're proposing appropriations of $1.6 million. This will cover primarily the addition of 3 new pieces of equipment for our sewer fleet, 2 combo trucks that are used for cleaning sewer infrastructure, and a 2-yard truck for crew and supply transport. Additionally, there are 2 positions proposed in this fund for the maintenance and operations division. The first is a fabrication specialist. The sewer infrastructure has some complex maintenance needs, and this position will allow for that specialized focus. Additionally, there is an equipment mechanic that would be dedicated to the sewer fleet. This is intended to reduce their equipment downtime and maximize that utilization for our sewer infrastructure. Outside of these items, the remaining items are revisions and those fund balance true-ups that I mentioned at the beginning. And I'm available if you have any questions.
First of all, thank you so much. Good job.
Thank you.
Because I don't think you've been up here before.
One time.
One time, how are you feeling?
Okay.
Okay, I think you did fantastic. You should be proud.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to send it, Councilwoman Breckus, go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation, and good job, to the finance director and the team, all of you, on bringing forward an augmentation to close out last year's books and help us position for next year. I do have a couple questions, and they were follow-up, I have a lot of questions, actually. But high level, the 5.2 million from ARPA, which you are calling revenue replacement, I think, and you mentioned that last March, we bucketed that aside. And I do recall that. I recall a conversation with the finance director. She wanted to hold back 5 million if revenues started to look a little dicey. And the answer is yes, we do need that put into our revenue bucket. Is that kind of the determination? Because otherwise, the council had discussions of other ARPA eligible funds we were going to use. So I just want to clarify that's the point we're at.
The $5 million is proposed to replace lost revenue from the prior fiscal year. So we were anticipating having additional funds remaining at the end of last year that due to that revenue loss were not available. So now into this year, we're proposing to use those funds for some one-time expenses.
One-time expenses or to fill revenue gaps?
We're proposing to use them for one-time expenses that we would have used the remaining revenue from the prior fiscal year, but we did not receive that.
So I think I can add some clarity here. There are no revenue gaps existing in this year's budget. If you'll recall, one of the difficulties as we were budgeting last year is that revenues fell off against the budgeted numbers from the last budget cycle. And so as we came in about 3% under budget last year on the revenue side, we had to build a budget that sort of started in a hole. And so while we're on budget for this year and there are no budget gaps, that revenue replacement backfills against the revenues that came in under budget from the last cycle. And now we're proposing that we use them for one-time expenses like the FF&E at the Moana Springs Aquatic Center and the new Public Safety Center.
Well, that begs two more questions, because the 3.8 that we're rolling over from ending fund balance, that's pretty healthy. So that doesn't, comport with that we, had a shortage from last one, because we're rolling over 3.8. And then I thought we just went into the contingency on some of those needs. Or are we backfilling the contingency for those needs, for the pool and the fire station?
We haven't been into contingency in this budget cycle at all.
What was the funds that we just used last meeting to allocate towards those?
We didn't allocate funds towards those at all. We were in the $2 account.
We were in the $2 account. Yeah, no, I know that. Okay. The other question I have is...
Councilman Breckus, I'm going to move on, and I'll come back to you if no one else has any questions. Okay. All right. Any other questions from council members? Councilman Martinez, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. Thank you for the presentation and the breakdown of that. I appreciate sort of the tying the positions into what accounts they're coming out of and looking at ways to maybe support other departments. I heard you say that, which one of the positions was revenue generating. I believe that was the fire EMS positions that you were referring to. And just looking at ways to continue to support code enforcement. I think we hear from our community members that, that service is very, one that they want to see more of and continue to receive those services. So I don't know if you can answer for me if there's a way for the funds that are generated out of code enforcement to be tied into a specific fund, or do those go to the general fund?
Those are currently recognized in the general fund, and they do not exceed the cost of our code enforcement department.
So you're saying there's no additional revenue to support any growth at this time, is what you're, okay? I just wanted to explore that possibility to see if there was a way to get some more code enforcement officers, but thanks for the clarification. Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Councilwoman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation and your work on this. I wanted some clarification, please. You used two terms, cost neutral and true up. I was wondering if you just might be able to expand on what that means specific to some of the fire positions.
Yes, so specifically for those fire positions, I use the term cost neutral because there is no impact to the general fund. Those positions, we directly bill for the services that they provide and receive that funding back from the federal government, so it's a wash. So I just use cost neutral as.
So it's a benefit to the city?
Yes.
Okay. And then I think I understand what true up is, but if you could maybe just dig a little, if you could explain it a little bit for me, please.
Absolutely. So when we propose the budget in the spring of every year, and that is adopted in May, those are based on projections. We do still have a month and a half-ish at the end of the fiscal year. So we project as best we can how we anticipate the funds ending. Sometimes contracts aren't completely spent out. Maybe we have some salary savings from vacant positions. Various things happen through operations. Once the audit is complete the following fall and the ACFR is completed and accepted, we then know 100% how that prior year ended. So we can do that true up to say we thought it would end this way, it did end this way, what's the net? And so we recognize that, and this is just recognizing that in paperwork.
Great, thank you very much. My last question is really just a comment. I'm really excited about the resources that we're putting into the maintenance department. I personally receive a lot of calls and emails about how our residents would like to see more resources and effort put in that. So I'm very excited, and I think it aligns with what our priorities were for last year. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Councilman Reese.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I have no comments at this
All
time.
right, thank you so much. Councilwoman Ebert? Nothing? Okay. Councilwoman Dewar?
I'm fine, thanks.
All right, Councilwoman Breckus?
Yeah, I want to thank the manager for the clarification on the surplus funds for the Public Safety Center and the Moana Springs, but reiterate my request for a dashboard of the costs on those, to know where we're at, how much money we've spent. I think I got confused in remembering that part of my concern about moving forward with the bonds or whatever funding plan we have or don't have for the fire station is based upon concerns that we're still putting money into the two projects for cost overruns that were not on the original budget, and the lack of transparency on where we're at on those two projects. So I want to make that point. But let's talk about those new positions you're adding to the general fund. Received a letter from REMSA, which was unclear to me what their message was, but they're not here, so I guess there's not an opposition. But you're adding 8 new positions for fire under this reimbursement framework. And we added how many already under that in the last budget cycles? Do you remember?
I think he's checking to see if it needs to reset. Oh, Jenny, you're on blue. Press your button. Nope, you're still not projecting. We paused you, Breckus, for your time.
Is
There you go.
under financial planning, and I know you all run spreadsheets and projections all day long, is if we're adding 6 or 8? 8. 6. Then we have 9 already, right? And so you have some financial modeling showing that those have all come through with all the reimbursements and how much we've received, and you have some projections, like you mentioned, for the other ones. Because bringing on 6 new firefighters is a real big issue to me, to make sure that we have this revenue. And I'd like to see, the backup data that you have, historical for the ones we already have, and the projections you're relying upon going forward. How much of this patient reimbursement exists out in our market, and how you're projecting what our share will be. In lieu of that, I'm having challenges accepting adding these positions on. Do you have some modeling and data like that?
We do, yes. Thank you for the question. We have received to date already revenue far exceeding the cost of these 15 positions. So that is revenue we've already received and
Yeah. I'm at the point where I want to see the metadata, if you will, on these sort of programs before I bring new people on. Now, I have another set of questions for the other people we're bringing on, which are the street fund. And I know that we get a fuel tax cut distribution, but my understanding is that a past council made a decision that that would be for capital and not for personnel. So I'd like a little more history on that, how we're trending. You say we're trending high, right? And that's what makes you feel comfortable. You can absorb these, how many positions?
4.
4 positions on. But I want to see the data on that, and I want to see the past thinking why we didn't have positions on that before. What internal discussions did you have about that?
I don't have the data in front of me right now, but we can follow up. I believe that the fuel tax revenue should be reflected on the quarterly report that's coming out this month.
Yeah, okay. Because it is a policy decision for the council, is if you cut out of the fuel tax, other things that the fuel tax gone for aren't getting done. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to maintenance and operations. That's often a priority. But are we starting to see fewer street projects? Because that's in the mix of the street projects. I think that rather than having it on a swooped up augmentation, the council needs to understand and have policy discussions about how we use this very competitive, among our needs, revenue source. And we're not having that here. And that's not comfortable for me. And then my next question, if I may continue on, Madam Mayor, is...
On breakfast, just to point out, you're 2 minutes over, so you still have another minute.
Yeah, budgeting's our biggest job here, and evaluating the manager. 4 times a year, we come and augment. Big time. We do big augmentations. I ask for a real little bit of a relaxation of the rules so the public knows that our head is on the financials.
And listen, I have no problem with that.
thank you.
But the reason I do it is so that other council members can get their
Okay.
questions on the
Okay.
record as well.
Okay.
And I've always given you plenty of time. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want to make sure that everyone understands that I'm not just giving you preferential treatment. I'm just asking for everyone so that they get their questions on the record as well. So,
Sure,
go
Madam
ahead.
Mayor, and since we have such a nice light agenda, it's a great opportunity to kind of dig into this big augmentation, but I'll yield if you want to go around and ask people, because I'm not claiming you're giving, I'm asking for preferential treatment. I just want to have my questions answered. So if you want to go around and ask others, I'll just yield for a minute
Sure,
or two.
and thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's the reason why I try to give everyone 3 minutes to go back around so that it's just everyone collectively has their questions answered. Okay, any questions from Councilman Martinez? Councilwoman Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I have a question based on my colleague's question. Are there things that we're not going to be doing in the capital project that were scheduled that we were going to be able to get done with the addition of the new personnel in the maintenance and operations?
That's not a part of what we're bringing forward.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, please, go ahead.
For my part, I agree with Councilmember Breckus. Our most important role that we fulfill is the evaluation of the budget. At the same time, those conversations don't always happen in this room because we're looking at staff workups. So we've already had briefings with you and with our colleagues through that process. So it's not an indifference as why we don't have questions. I want the staff to understand we've asked our questions that led us to the conclusions that we maybe have. For my part, I love hearing the discussion at the dais because it may generate other questions, right? And that's the beauty of it. When I do my staff briefing and ask questions about the budget or the augmentations, I get direct answers from staff and I get to hear the answers from the city manager's office and even the department heads. What I don't get to do is hear what my colleagues on the dais are thinking about in terms of that, unless there is another one in my briefing. So, I think, real specifically and being very granular, I want to thank the city manager's office and Chief Cochran, because I do think there's something very important being called out here, which is the additional resources of personnel for our fire department. That's a huge win for this community. For the next part, if I look at even just the street fund, we place so much responsibility on our M&O folks, and we like to talk a good talk about how they are heroes, frontline heroes, when they go out and are having to plow our streets, but then we don't give them the resources to be successful. So again, in this augmentation, I think you're doing a good job of saying, hey, we need more folks in maintenance and operations, especially as it relates to how we maintain our right-of-ways, and in this case, the parkways that are there in front of the right-of-ways. I understand where the money comes from in terms of how it's allocated and why it's, not a general fund item and those sort of things. So I'm supportive also for the recommendations that's been brought forward by staff. The last thing I'll say with the time I have remaining is that augmentations that happen in this quarter can sometimes be complex and difficult, in part because you've got the whole year now to have caught up from the past fiscal period, but we're also getting ready to start budget workshops here in the next couple of weeks where we'll look at the budget in its entirety from top to bottom, department by department. And so it's sometimes hard when you have this one before that one because the decisions we make today will impact that one. But again, I'm supportive of the staff recommendations, the augmentations that you've presented. I just want to make sure that when we get to budget, we're all ready to talk about our priorities, whether that's more code enforcement officers, as Councilmember Martinez has advocated for, additional police officer resources, and for cleanup along the river, as Councilmember Taylor has often advocated for. Budget's hard, especially because we know we're getting into a pretty flat budget. And so for my part, I'll be looking forward to engaging in a more iterative process in the budget.
All right. Councilwoman Ebert? Nope. Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Councilwoman Dewar?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hey, I also was going to make similar comments to Councilmember Reese. I wanted to particularly call out what we're being able to do with fire in terms of paramedic response because of the new approach to billing. I think that's outstanding and really useful. So thank you.
All right. I'm going to send it back to Councilwoman Breckus.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
You know, to follow up on Ms. Taylor's comment, the statement that, well, the line of questioning, with putting positions on the motor fuel tax, does it cause us not to be able to do other things? The backup data for that, in my view, would be 7 years, 10 years of the motor fuel tax to understand the growth line's projection. And you're saying that it won't be. So then you would have from this year when we put on these other positions, a growth line projection that it's all going to get covered by going forward. The growth will cover those new positions. I'd just like to see that, because if it's cutting into some baseline services that we do, say it's a neighborhood street project, want to understand that. And, this is really normal questioning and backup a council would expect. The statement that, well, we get briefed and so on, that may be true if you have data like this or you're shown. But one is we want to do our work in transparency. And two, I'm the senior member here along with the mayor. I have an embargo from the city manager on having those dialogues, which is unfortunate because I think that I'll just leave it at that. But the next questions I have is, did I see $4 million in payouts?
In severance.
Severance.
costs and
How
other
does that
payouts.
track historically with our payouts? Because I've never seen anything get up to 4 million.
Well, that was split between police and fire.
Yeah, but even there, I don't recall going that high.
We have had some really high-level retirements this year, and they have some really large accrual banks, and so those have to be paid
Yeah.
out when they leave by their contract.
Let me just butt in. Mr. City Manager, I see that you
So, well, that trend is going to continue for a couple of years. We went through a period of about a decade where we didn't really hire in the public safety realm, and so we have essentially a generational gap in our fire and police departments. And so as they retire, we're going to have to cash out their leave banks, and it's going to be expensive for a number of years. And so that's why you're seeing such a large number in the severance space for police and fire. That you'll see that for the next 5 or so years.
On that, in my mind, would be historical, how much we've expected, how many individuals that equates to. You could even do a very private, not showing off who anyone is, but show, the average is this, and the average is, with people with 30 years, and each department has this many years. And, that actually, that statement, it kind of conflicts with what I understand of the fire department, that we didn't hire for 7 years. So there's really maybe the ones who were on then are the ones coming out, but there's actually a breathing room of then very young folks. So just the backup data is, I think, very important. It doesn't include any severance payments, because I know the manager has signed a number of settlement agreements with employees who, don't work out. Those are confidential, but I'm continue to wonder how those are getting paid out of. It's just retirements out of that, correct?
Correct. These are paying out accruals based on their bargaining agreement.
Okay.
And I'm going to cut you off there because you're about 4.5 minutes over.
Okay,
So
well, I'd like to go to the utility fund next, if you don't mind.
Well, we're now at 4 rounds, so hold on a second. I would love to hear from Chief Cochran. I know you're sitting here, but I want you to talk a little bit about that so that the council understands.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that. And yeah, I just wanted to be here in case there was any questions. And a couple of you have mentioned the additional staffing that we're bringing on, and I'll just speak to the success of that program. We brought on these are, just to be clear, these are not firefighters. These are non-suppression paramedics. They're responding a two-person crew on an ambulance, part of our mission to get the right resource to the right call at the right time. We've seen Medic 3, which was the first one we stood up back in March. They responded to over 3,000 calls last year. Now, that's fantastic because that's about, when we target about 3,000 calls per apparatus, that's kind of what we want for the max. So what it tells us is there's the demand out there for that response, but Engine 3 also responded to over 4,000 calls. So if you look at that, there's almost 7,000 calls that would have been all on Engine 3. Having brought this resource on, we've now been able to spread that workload out and really bring a benefit to the firefighters in the stations because of the workload, reduced workload, and to the city because they're getting the right resource. And I'll just throw in the one last tidbit. Vanessa Sandoval on Medic 3 delivered a baby a couple of weeks ago. So that's always a win.
Definitely.
And if anybody has any specific questions about the program, we're expanding that. These additional positions will staff Medic 2 or possibly a different station, but a second medic unit that will be delivering those same services. And again, defraying the workload on the firefighters, bringing better service to the community, all of it cost neutral.
And I also think, I guess I get a little concerned because sometimes we still think we are in the small city category, and we are now, according to the census, we are a medium-sized city. So it is a whole new level that we have to, I think, be prepared for, and I think you're doing a great job of that. But I think overall, not just with fire, but police, other sewer service, whatever it looks like, I think we all have to be cognizant that we are now a medium-sized city. Go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
So Chief, for some additional context with respect to the workload demand that we're looking at with Engine 3 and Rescue 3, if we're targeting that 3,000 call number, how many firefighters would we have to hire to staff an additional truck?
So if we were going to staff an additional apparatus, we would bring on at least 15 more firefighters.
Okay, how much does that cost?
Close to $2 million, right?
A little more.
$2 million range.
It's about $2.4 million, if I remember the AFR that's sitting on my desk right now.
I was rounding.
And so I think, the benefit of the program you've designed, we talk about it in terms of it being cost neutral, but not only is it cost neutral, the alternative you've created here really is getting the most bang for our buck, and it is, I think a real demonstration of being an excellent steward of taxpayer money. Thank you very much, Chief.
And I would just add that 15 number translates directly to the 15 EMS positions that we have that now deploy 2 resources out on the city that we didn't have before.
Okay, good. All right, thank you so much, appreciate it. Any questions for Chief Cochran?
Yeah, so,
Hold on 1 second. Councilwoman Dewar. She had her hand up, maybe she can't hear.
Sorry, I didn't mean to have my hand up.
Okay, all right, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Councilwoman Breckus, go ahead.
yeah, so I presume I think it's page 38 of the PDF is the quasi-external receipts, the 10.3. Are those the fire reimbursement ones coming in that has increased to the revised budget only 57,000? Is that the money coming in for this purpose?
While
That's
Lindsay looks,
how
I
we're
can tell
tagging
you-
these?
While Lindsay looks, I can tell you that the GEMT program, that's where the fire money is coming from for the EMS positions. That number is about 7.3 right now.
Okay.
And that will fund these positions
Okay.
for the next 2 years, even if we don't bring in another dollar.
And let's kind of, I'm really trying to have baseline information about these things. So it's exceeding revenues projections, and this is because we're going out to people's insurance plans, correct?
No.
How are we doing, how are we getting funded? We're only hitting Medicaid?
This
Or-
is Medicaid reimbursement, and the simplified explanation is that Medicaid reimburses us for our overhead for the costs that we incur to be able to provide that service for the whole community.
Okay, and Medicaid is solid? Okay. Now, my next questions are about the sewer fund. People in the community brought it to my attention, and I spent a little time looking on this. Oh, did you figure out what that quasi-external is on page 38?
Yeah, so page 38 is actually our fleet fund.
Oh, so you're
So
calling
that's what
that
the general
38?
fund.
Okay, yeah, and the fees have grown a lot. They've become, I think, our second largest revenue source,
For fleet,
general fund.
that's property tax.
Oh, I thought when you rolled business licenses in, it's, okay. So the question is, the utility fund is sitting on an
Oh, sorry, for Lindsay Hatfield for the records.
property tax.
Oh, no. Our second
Sorry,
largest
these
revenue
mics
source
are
is
not on.
property tax.
Is property
Okay.
tax
All
still.
right, thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay, yeah, something jumped out at me at how much our fees, but that maybe is a bundle of fees, franchise, and business licenses, has outpaced other growth. So the utility fund is sitting on $80 million of reserves.
Are you
The
looking
sewer fund?
At the cash balance? Could you direct me what you're looking at?
Well, what page does the sewer fund start on?
Page 31.
Page 31. I'm looking for explanation on that because I'm getting a lot of feedback on, one, this year, unlike I hadn't heard before, people were real hot about the sewer fund increase. And some of the pushback to the stormwater fund is double, if you will, taxation, which I don't agree with, but total operating, let's see, what is the cash balance in the sewer fund?
$150 million.
115 million is the cash balance.
50.
150 million?
Yes.
Okay. How does that trend line from the last 10 years of the sewer fund?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information with me.
Okay, because it's a big cash fund balance. And we haven't had a conversation about that, but we're on autopilot of the rates increasing. And why are we, is that 150 million earmarked anywhere?
I think maybe there's a misunderstanding in the accounting details. Could I defer to my director, please?
Of course.
I mean, we budgeted, what did we budget this year, 70 million?
For the
The
cash
utility
balance?
fund, for the utility fund.
Or originally, I believe, 148.
So we
And this
budgeted
is-
it down to zero.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, may I interject momentarily? Ms. Hatfield, please understand, we're not expecting you to know every line of every budgetary document that ever existed. I don't want you to get flustered or frustrated by the inquiry, in part because I know how difficult it is to do your job. And so doing it up here in like 30-second increments and then trying to communicate back with us when maybe we're calling it the wrong thing or the wrong line item or going into a different fund, you're doing exceptionally well, but I want you to understand that I sense how difficult it is to engage in this process. It's sort of why I said at the beginning, for my part, I try to ask the questions so that I know what the answers are rather than just sort of wandering. And no disrespect to any of my colleagues, you've got to get where you have to, but I'm trying to help you understand. I appreciate you. I don't think you're flustered asking for a director to come forward. You know this stuff better than we do, will ever know it, so thank you for your stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think you're doing a very, very good job. And guess what? If you're not, up here and getting comfortable, then you never will. So we want you up here. And I actually think you're doing a fantastic job. And I want to apologize. We don't typically go this long in our rounds. We have our council book that we stick to. So I would also just encourage Councilwoman Breckus to anything in writing to make sure, put it in writing so that you can also get those questions if something doesn't get answered.
So the body is about to get a very technical answer, but the easiest answer to the question being asked is when you look at the sewer fund, it is a conglomeration of connection fees and user fees, and they go into the CIP that is approved by the group annually. They go into the operations and the maintenance of the sewer system that we have in the city, and every dollar is accounted for, whether that is in the maintenance projects that we need to do on an ongoing basis or the enhancements that need to go into the system that take a long time to develop the amount of revenue needed to either bond against or pay for in cash. And that is why there is so much money in that account. There is nothing cheap about running a sewer system. And even at $150 million, we're several $100 million short of where we need to be to get to, the projects that need to take place in the relatively near future to keep the community moving forward.
All right, thank you. Okay, Ms. Van Buren, take it away.
Vicki Van Buren, Director of Finance. I just wanted to give a quick clarification. Lindsay is absolutely correct that the beginning cash balance is $150 million, but then we project all the expenses during the year, and you'll see on that same page that you're looking at, Councilmember Breckes on page 33, the ending balance we project is at $31 million. So there's lots of projects. It's already earmarked for lots of projects. We're not sitting on a lot of cash there. We began the year with a lot of projects that came forward. They don't, just like in the street fund, they don't just happen in one year. They carry over from year to year. So we start with a lot of money in the beginning, and then we do a lot of projects, and we end with about $30 million, so.
Okay. Councilman Breckes, go ahead. I want you to ask her some questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to respond to some comments that were said here is, maybe this isn't the right forum to have all these questions, but there is not a forum for these questions. There is not budget workshops mid-year. There are not items coming forward specific, and so there is no other option. And I'm not going to ask questions that I know the answer to because I just don't want to be performative. I want to really daylight and understand issues. So, I'm not apologizing because I don't set the agenda, and I wish we spent a lot more time on the fiscal. I really, really did. I'm seeing things move around, use this fund, that fund, that are really starting to concern me because, we're putting this on enterprise fund, that we're putting that on enterprise fund. It shows stress to the general fund. But you said we ended the year with, we're projecting 31 million cash in?
Yes, that's correct.
How much did we project cash in last year? Because we rolled over 150 million, right?
I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
It's probably about the same because as we project the projects and they don't finish, we carry that money forward and it continues until that project finishes.
Well, what I'm seeing over at Tumwa is that Reno is not moving forward on the agreement that Tumwa has with Reno to advance the purification project. And occasionally we hear why that is, but not enough to understand, what the big number is out there. So, how much of the rollover is attributable to that North Valley's plant? Because we seem to spend pretty regularly at Tumwa.
We are currently working on, as you know, we brought forward to council to look at some bonding options for that project. We are still working on that.
Okay.
That approval that council gave is good for 3 years. We're working within that parameter. We do have a lot of money on hand, which is most of this money that you see here as for the first part of this project, and that project is moving forward.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing money build up in the bank for a project that's very geographic specific for new growth when every November I get the rash of calls about the sewer rates going up. And that's a problem I'm having. If I could defend and say, look, the money's flowing out. I'm seeing it. You can see it built. That's getting there. But if it's just cash building up a reserve, that's just not resonating with the ratepayers who get those bills.
Councilman Breckes, thank you so much. I've given you 15 minutes over, so I'd like to move on.
Madam Mayor, if I
Go
could, I do feel like we need to say now, there is no stress on the general fund. We are exactly on budget from what this council adopted. Revenues are coming in as were projected within 1%. I mean, almost to the dollar. And so as you see us moving things to enterprise funds or proprietary funds, it's because we think it is a better policy to put that functionality or that position against a fee-based system, particularly when you look at BFAC that was so far over for so many years with respect to what was sitting there in the account. I mean, that was an overage that was cause for concern and you know, was going to result in some trouble against the statutory schematic of an enterprise fund. With respect to, you know, I think the allegation that we're building up a reserve in the sewer fund, you can see that the large balance of what's going out the door is being spent on maintenance and operations of the existing system. And, you know, we are moving forward with respect to the advanced purified water project in the North Valleys. Our engineering team, I don't know if it's today, but if it's not today, it's tomorrow, is sitting down with our partners with respect to whether or not we want to proceed with the WIFIA program or the State Revolving Loan Fund to figure out how exactly we can better finance that project. And so, you know, nothing moves as quickly as any of us would be happy with, but it is a several $100 million project, and it is going to take as long as it takes to get that across the finish line.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much. I just want to reiterate to Ms. Van Buren, I want you to feel compelled to defend your reasons for doing something, because oftentimes up here we get it wrong. You're the expert, so I appreciate your responses, and
Thank you.
I really want you to feel like you have the ability to do that, because sometimes I know it can feel a little overwhelming. And I also want the public to know that, you know, public speaking is like one of the number one fears. It's the dentist, public speaking, and flying. And Matthew, he's back here, he's like, yes, I can attest to it. And it is. It's, you know, you get up here, your heart starts to beat, you're nervous, it's not something you're comfortable with. And so I just want to compel staff to make sure, and I hate to say this, but I want to compel our team to feel like they can defend the reasons that they do what they do. I think you have done a fantastic job, Ms. Van Buren, of like every year. I mean, it's been a game changer, I think, since you have been doing this, but I want you to feel like it's okay to defend how you feel, because sometimes I think it's a little overwhelming, especially when we're not used to being up at this dais all the time. So thank you so much, I appreciate it. And then I would just say I appreciate Councilwoman Breckis's questions, but also I think that, you know, put them in writing so that everything that you are interested in getting a response from would be great. So, okay.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve augmentations and revisions from October 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023.
Okay, thank you so much. I have a motion from Councilman Reese.
Second.
Second from
Madam Mayor?
Councilwoman Breckis.
Yeah.
And a discussion from Councilwoman Breckis. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, the one question I didn't get answered is, it does not appear that we're resetting any of the revenues through this. So I'm understanding that this means that the revenues we're projecting through this augmentation are not changed in any way. So, you know, that's not asking you, that's just stating an understanding is the revenues seem good. It's been represented, they're coming in right on target. And we're not adjusting them, because sometimes when you revise the budget, you're like, well, was that the one we closed up in May, or was it, you know, a change around in June or July, or September or October? Now, the points that I've raised that prevent me from voting for this are wanting backup data for the positions we're adding, showing the Medicare reimbursement past and projections forward to add on new fire paramedics. Likewise, I want to understand the impacts to the street fund. If this is growth, you know, where I hear fuel taxes actually are slipping with EVs. So I don't know if it's some compounding thing or whatever, but I do not have the comfort to understand and move maintenance positions over to a fuel fund that has done hard projects. That's just not a place for me. The $4 million on severance, I need evidence and background on that, because we've never budgeted, to my knowledge, that much. And that's fine. If we've got one firefighter or one police officer who put in 30 years and is cashing out what they're entitled to, fine. But I want backup data at least on a longitudinal basis, so I can understand if this is an outlier we're looking at or what's going on. So these are very specific questions of data that I would have asked Ms. Van Buren if any of my quarterly requests to meet with her over the last year, 2 years have been met, but they have not been. And that's why I will bring it up at these points. And I'm not going to submit to a written record. That's a level of service that no one else on this body is asked to do, is required to do. I've met with finance directors quarterly for 10 years. That is absolutely an expected thing of anyone here, to have that real data information and understand the ins and outs. So for these reasons, this information not in here gives me discomfort in augmenting the budget with these changes.
Okay,
So I
I
vote
have a
no.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on. Madam Clerk, going to send it right back to you. Ms. Scarlett.
Absolutely. Madam Mayor, our next item is G1. This is an appointment of the Ward 3 NAB.
All right, I'm going to send it to Councilman Martinez. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to appoint Zachary Bolton to Ward 3.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, going to send it right back to you.
We are on item G2. This is the appointment of the Youth City Council.
Oh, cool. All right, is that you, Councilman Reese?
No, Mr. Martinez again.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Luckily with this appointment, we're going to fill the board, so super excited to get the Youth City Council full and up and running. And I'm happy to make the motion to appoint Addison Gwynn to the Youth City Council.
Second.
All right, fantastic. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good job. Okay, Madam Clerk, sending it back to you.
We are currently on item H1 for Mayor and Council.
All right, any comments or announcements from council members? No? Okay. Moving on, sending it back to you, Madam Clerk.
With that, Madam Mayor, we are on our last item, which is closing public comment.
All right, do you have any public comment?
At this time, we do not have any public comment,
Okay.
but for the record, we did receive, sorry, Madam Mayor, we did receive one comment in support, which was general in nature or not directly associated with the agenda item prior to 4 p.m. on January 23rd, 2024. These comments were voicemail and or written correspondence received via our reno.gov online public comment form or by email to our office. Copies of these comments have been distributed to the Reno City Council and are available to the public on the reno.gov meeting portal. With that, Madam Mayor, we have no further comment.
Okay, thank you so much. So we are on item K, correct?
Correct. With
All
that, we
right,
are
thank
looking
you so
for a
much.
motion.
Councilwoman Ebert, give me a motion.
Motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Great
you,
job,
Madam
by
Mayor.
the way.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Very impressed.